What's up, everybody? This is Steve from Bloom Audio. Today we have the Monarch MK3 from ThieAudio. Now, Monarch MK2 was a huge hit, got top marks from critics and reviewers everywhere. Audiophiles loved it too. So this is a really highly anticipated release, but people are also a little cautiously optimistic. Considering how great Monarch MK2 was, how is MK3 going to improve on that? Could it end up being a little worse, or is it just going to be something different altogether? Let's take a closer look and find out. Visually, Monarch MK3 is a stunner. We have the default configuration here, and they're doing something a little different, which is they're allowing you to pick from a selection of faceplates and shells when you order your Monarch MK3. There's about 80 total combinations of faceplates and shells you can get here. And looking through the selection, each of them is going to give you something that really looks like a Flagship IEM. That's going to be somewhat unique to you. In terms of the fit, Monarch MK3 is pretty large. We compared it to MK2, which was already pretty large for a lot of people, and MK3 is bigger, noticeable when you hold them next to each other. But kind of passing it around the office, most people didn't seem to notice a huge difference in the overall comfort or the difficulty of getting them in your ears. Might be a matter of slightly better ergonomics on a slightly larger shell. Either way, it's pretty big. MK3 is a 10-driver tribrid featuring 2 dynamic drivers, 6 balanced armature drivers, and 2 electrostatic drivers with a 4-way crossover. Sensitivity is 99 dB, and the impedance is 20 ohms. The package includes the IEMs, a modular cable, a case, cleaning cloth, and a set of foam and silicone ear tips with small, medium, and large in each. Monarch MK3 comes with an updated cable. The MK2 had like a cloth-wrapped cable. This is more of a kind of a traditional, transparent rubber sort of feel to it. The construction of the cable is the coating is silver and silver graphene over OCC copper. If you notice those impedance and sensitivity numbers, this is pretty inefficient for an IEM. Don't think you'll have any issue driving it with pretty much any portable gear. We tested on a variety of different stacks and DAPs and everything else in the office and didn't feel like we were really pushing anything too hard. Now, of course, the more important question isn't how high did you turn it up, it's how does it sound? Recently had a conversation with a guy who's been, in the audiophile community and hi-fi audio for over 50 years, both professionally and as a hobby. And he told me a joke that I'm going to totally butcher for you right now. It goes something like this. You ask people, what do they want most in the world? About half of them will say something like money, fame, and the other half will say something like end world hunger or world peace. But they were really being honest with you. They would all say, just want more bass. ThieAudio apparently heard this joke, took it very seriously. If you heard Monarch MK2, thought it needed more bass, well, I got an IEM for you. Monarch MK3's bass is incredible. Deep extension, very similar in character to bone conduction in the rumble with that new Impact 2 subwoofer that ThieAudio is developing there. And again, 2 dynamic drivers. It also hits really hard in the mids, just great impact, great depth and rumble, lots of physicality in the bass, but also lots of texture. There's a good balance there between giving you that visceral, physical feeling and also keeping things detailed and textured in the low end. Mids are really well crafted, great detail retrieval, strong layering, good instrumental balance. But I did find that depending on the genre, source you were using, that bass could sometimes kind of overshadow the mids. I want to be clear that it's not that the bass has that feeling of lead where it's coloring the mids. It's more just that if you're at the mix board, you're listening, you're imagining a mix board in your head. It's just, you get the feeling you kind of wish you could just maybe pull the bass guitar, drum down just like one notch on the mix board over everything else. But again, it's not the bleed or coloration. It's just the way that, with warmer sources, that instrumental balance is presented. I found the vocals in Mark III to be really well balanced, and I think this is going to be a point of contention between people who really liked the Mark III and people who really liked the Mark II. Basically, Mark II had this really forward, vivid vocal presentation, really, intimate vocal imaging, and it was really just too much for me. And a lot of times I preferred the Monarch Mark II for instrumental music because I just didn't love the way those vocals hit me. Mark III brings that back a little bit, and I think they maintain a lot of that really strong character in the vocals, but they do that without that same sort of really forward emphasis in the vocals. The treble is also part of that shift in how Monarch Mark III presents the vocals, where Mark II again had this emphasis in the upper mids there. Mark III shifts it up, so the emphasis in the upper end, that sort of balance you get between your upper frequencies and your lower frequencies with that strong bass, it pushes it a little further into the upper treble. So you get a little bit more air, a little more breath in the vocals, but less of that really forward sensation of the vocals in the mix. And you also get with that treble, a really strong sense of the resolution and notes on things like violins. And just great sizzle and sparkle. And it's balanced in such a way that you don't get a lot of harsh tones out of the treble. You get the air and extension, you get the fundamentals of the treble, but you don't get any kind of sharpness there. Now, if the bass is one clear highlight of Mark III, I think the imaging is another. The soundstage really wide, deep. It feels three-dimensional, a little more wide than deep, but still very well balanced in that. Imaging is much more holographic than it was in Mark II. I think Mark II, the vocals were great. The soundstage was wide, but the rest of that presentation of the image felt lacking. Mark III fills that in, where it's wide, it's deep, and all of the instruments are well presented there. So again, if we're making a comparison with Mark II and Mark III, I'd say that's the one clear advantage that Mark III has over Mark II, but there's a bit more to this comparison here. I brought in two IEMs to compare to Monarch Mark III. First and foremost is Monarch Mark II, which we've already been talking about a little bit. The other is the ThieAudio U4S. Part of the reason I picked U4S is, these three IEMs are all in about the same price range. I see them contrasting with each other in a really interesting way. So I don't know if you've ever seen like a meme or graph where it has a triangle. It's sort of like you can only pick two. There's 3 points on the triangle. And with IEMs, I almost see that as, the core tonality, technical performance, and fun. U4S, Monarch Mark III, and Monarch Mark II, I think, all hit this graph in different ways and make for an interesting comparison. U4S offers a near perfect to target sort of tuning. Get that great tonal balance, and then on the technical side, it's fast, it's accurate, it's transparent. Image feels very well-rounded, very three-dimensional, with great placement and separation, holographic feeling, imaging. But then you listen to the Monarch brothers for a week, and you put in U4S, and it doesn't quite have that fun factor. Monarch Mark II, again, one of the reasons it has been so popular is because of how well it just nails the basics of the tonality. And then it gives you that little bit of extra bass, little extra impact, and those really forward engaging vocals that again makes for a really fun, engaging listen for Mark II. But then on the technical side, it's not bad in terms of resolution, but doesn't really stand out in terms of the speed, the resolution. The imaging, as I mentioned before, it highlights the vocals but feels somewhat flat otherwise. Bringing us to the Monarch Mark III, which now my first listen through my basic playlist, some of my collection, demonstrated that Monarch Mark III doesn't quite have that sort of versatile tonal balance that Monarch Mark II has, that U4S has, that makes it really strong and versatile across all different kinds of music. What it does have is the bass. And when Monarch Mark III sounds good, it sounds great. Hip hop, EDM, most modern rock and metal, more electronic music, all just sounds incredible with both that deep, thick bass along with that upper end shimmer and sparkle that gets in there as well. And to top that off, you do get this great imaging performance, some improvements in resolution over the Mark II, and again, the soundstage, the whole picture, the holographic feeling. Mark III really nails the technical side and it nails the fun, but comes up a little short compared to U4S and the Monarch Mark II in those just basics of tuning and tonality. Clearly there's some exaggerations here. Just talking to you guys at CanJam, I know a lot of people are saying, the U4S is a little too fun for my tastes, which, that's okay. But when we're thinking about IEMs like this and comparing, a lot of times what's helpful is to just ask, what are the things that I can't live without and what are the things I can live without? Let us know in the comments what you think and what that triangle looks like in your favorite IEM. Monarch Mark II gave listeners a taste of flagship IEMs like the Elysian Annihilator and the Aroma Jewel at a fraction of the price. Monarch Mark III goes in a slightly different direction, possibly aiming more towards something like a Empire Ears Legend Evo or a Sony IER Z1R. It's not that sort of bloated bass head sound where the bass sounds great but drowns out the rest of the mix. Instead, it's one that delivers that just incredible low end while also balancing in those core characteristics you need in the rest of the music and also strong technical performance. While it can't quite match the bass in your face, but also bass in its place of Legend Evo, ThieAudio Monarch Mark III is probably the most complete sounding bass head IEM in its price range. Thanks for watching. Check out Monarch Mark III and a lot of other great products at bloomaudio.com. Be sure to like and subscribe, and we'll be back soon with more hi-fi personal audio content.